This video covers everything we're learning today on Thursday, December 9th in 8th grade honors math. You need to open up Classkick so that you can follow along with these problems as we work. Your first step is to open up Classkick and complete the do now. So please pause this video and return to the video when your do now is complete. Your answers to the do now should be as follows. Negative 8 times 9 is negative 72. When we multiply a negative times a positive, we end up with a negative. Negative 4 divided by positive 5 would give us a fraction of negative 4 over 5. You also could have written that as a decimal, which would be negative 0.8. Question 3 says negative 7 minus negative 13. When we're subtracting a negative from a negative, it means we're moving left on the number line, and so we end up with negative 20. 4 says 7 minus negative 13. Remember, when we take away a negative, we're moving right on a number line, so we end up at positive 20. And 18 plus negative 2 is the same as saying 18 minus 2, which is equal to 16. If you have questions about any of these problems, please send me an email. We will have a foundational learning target quiz on these questions tomorrow. Today's learning target is actually incorrect in this document. Today's learning target is I can write and solve linear equations in the form of y equals mx plus b. So I will make sure that you have the correct learning target in your document by the time you see this video. So let's take a look at slide 3. So you should be on slide 3, lines that are translations. Slide 3 says the diagram shows several lines. You can only see part of the lines, but they actually continue forever in both directions. Which lines are images of line F under a translation? So in other words, which of the lines on this grid are a transformation of line F? That's question 1. And question 2 says, for each line that is a translation of F, draw an arrow on the grid that shows the vertical translation distance. So go ahead and pause this video and complete 8.1. Answer questions 1 and 2 in a full sentence. You can use the typing tool, which is right here in Classkick. Okay, so you should have tried 8.1 on your own. If you haven't yet, just pause the video. We can see that there are two images of line F that are translations. The first is going to be H, because we can see that if we slid F in the direction of this arrow, we would end up with line H. Notice that all that needed to happen to move F from H was a slide. There's no twisting, turning, reflecting, or any of the other actions that we need for different rigid transformations or for a dilation. So the first image is H, and the second image is I, because once again, we can simply slide I in this diagonal direction like the arrow I just drew. There is no turns or twists that are required. So we can dilate H and I. And I drew the arrows on the grid to demonstrate those translations. So my answers to question 2 are up here on the grid. Now, notice why G and J are not translations. To get from F to G, we would have to twist line F around this center point. It would be a twist, or to use the math word, a rotation. And the same thing is true to get F to J. We would have to rotate around the intersection. This is about 90 degrees. And so because we have to do that spin, that rotation, we know that G and H are not translations of line F. Let's take a look at 8.2. We're on slide 4. Diego earns $10 an hour babysitting. Assume he has no money saved before he starts babysitting and plans to save all of his earnings. Graph how much money Y he has after X hours of babysitting. If you feel at all stuck on this question, I would recommend starting with an XY table so you can start thinking about after 1 hour of babysitting, how much money does he make? After 2 hours, how much money does he make? And so on. Go ahead and pause this video and try 8.2 question 1. Okay, you should have tried to plot the points on your own. We know that after 1 hour of babysitting, Diego makes $10 because he makes $10 an hour. After 2 hours of babysitting, he makes $20. After 3 hours, he makes $30, and so on. It's just going to keep increasing by 10 for each hour. And so we can draw a line. This straight line tool here is really helpful through those points to complete our graph. And that's our graph in question 1. I'm going to turn my line red so I can keep track of what's what. Oops. Question 2 says, now imagine that Diego started with $30 saved before he starts babysitting. And this right here, this says 30. So I'll know if you're watching the video because you'll be able to tell that it says 30 is saved before he starts babysitting. On the same set of axes, graph how much money Y he would have after X hours of babysitting. Well, let's do an XY table again, and I'll change the color for clarity. This time, we know that when Diego has babysat 0 hours, he has $30 saved off the bat. After babysitting for 1 hour, he would have $40. 2 hours, he saves 10 more dollars, so 50, and so on. Go ahead and pause the video and graph the situation in question 2. Okay, you should have plotted these points on your own. You would start at 0.30, you would move to 140, then 250, and so on. And once again, we can just draw a straight line through our points. Now, question 3 says, compare the second line with the first line. How much more money does Diego have after 1 hour of babysitting, 2 hours, 5 hours, and X hours? And then question 4 says, write an equation for each line. I want you to go ahead and pause the video here and answer questions 3 and 4. So pause and try questions 3 and 4. Okay, so you should have tried 3 and 4 on your own. We can see that after 1 hour of babysitting, Diego has $10 on the red line and $40 on the blue line. So after 1 hour, I'm going to do a text box. After 1 hour, he has 30 more. After 2 hours, we can see that he also has 30 more. If we look at the line, 2 hours would be either 20 or 50. So he has 30 more dollars under the blue line. After 5 hours, it's going to be the same thing. He has 30 more. And again, we can see that difference here between where the red line is and where the blue line is after 5 hours. They're $30 apart, which means after X hours, and X just means any number of hours, he will have 30 more. And really all my 30s should have dollar symbols. And so now we have 2 equations for this situation. And the first line, on the blue line, we simply had to multiply X times 10 to get Y. 10X equals Y. That was on the red line, not the blue. I'm sorry, the original, the red. But on the blue line, we're multiplying 10 times X, but we're also adding that additional $30. And so these are the 2 equations for those lines. And notice that these 2 lines are connected to the do now. They're simply a translation. It is simply a shift upwards to get from the red line to the blue line. If you need to pause this video to get caught up with me, to take any notes, now is a good time to stop. On slide 5, it says, the graph shows 2 lines. Line A goes through the origin 0, 0, and line H is the image of A under a translation. So you can imagine that a translation happened, meaning that we shifted H up. Oh, the other way around, because H is the image of A. So we shifted H down from line A. And that should be a straight line if I was drawing more accurately. We shifted A down from H, right? So we're moving in this direction here. Now, the question says, select all of the equations whose line is graph H, and you are going to skip question 2 because question 2 requires some cards that you will not have access to, and so you are going to skip question 2. Instead, I want you to focus on question 1, matching the equations whose graph is line H. Complete this question independently, and you can check your work with our class notes, which will be posted at 1 p.m. Once you have finished slide 5, you have a lesson summary on slide 6, and you have an exit ticket, which is going to be in the Schoology folder. So you have a lesson summary on slide 6, and then I want you to go ahead and complete the exit ticket in the main folder and tonight's homework, which is going to be posted in Freckle. If you have any questions, please make sure that you are sending me an email.